Hey, thanks for joining us again. Welcome to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast with your co hosts, Chris Harris and John Farquhar. Today, we're going to talk about some hot stuff coming down the pipe here right now. So, Driver Inc, ELDs, yeah, hot items. There's no doubt about that. So, anyway, come along, join us while we jibber jab about what's happening in today's industry. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Jibber jab. That's
Jibber
what we're
jab,
doing.
buddy, jibber jab.
And in case our audience is wondering, those who are watching us, yes, we have our poppies on. This happens to be February the 11th.
November the 11th.
Sorry, yeah.
If it's
Thank you for
February,
that.
there better be more snow on the ground now than that.
Yeah, we'll go with November 11th. That would be a good day.
Exactly.
So, Johnny, we
Cool.
are talking about ELDs. We are
Yes.
talking. Which topic do you want to tackle first?
Let's start with ELDs. I think you started that. Let's go with that. I think that'll be fun.
All right, ELDs it is.
ELDs.
And let me just find here.
So for those that may be tuning in and new, ELD stands for electronic logging device. So it's a means to electronically record your hours of service, your hours of work.
Well, and look at that. I bring up the screen and I'm on the screen, but where's my
Woohoo!
co-host?
Oh, well, I walked over here to get a drink.
Yeah, I guess. What prompted this was an article in TruckNews, which I found to be very interesting. So now we'll come back to here where Johnny can be on the screen too.
Yep.
John, we tested this before I hit record.
We did.
Where did you go?
We did. Who knows? Even my wife says I show up mysteriously some days.
So the ELDs are, in Ontario at least, are going to be January the 1st of 23. That you can now get a ticket.
Yes.
So how about, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the law has actually been in effect since last year. Okay.
Right.
But there's been this soft enforcement. And actually I just recently got some news here at our local Fleet Safety Council chapter meeting that we had earlier this week. And one of the updates was from the Windsor MTO. And these guys have been chomping at the bit to lay fines for a very long time, but their hands have been tied due to this soft enforcement. And they had rhymed off a number of items, and I'm not going to rhyme them off. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was illicit use of the device, and they knew it was happening, but they could not charge the drivers because of soft enforcement. So all they could tell them was,
give me an example. What do you mean by illicit?
They were driving on personal conveyance time.
I tell you,
they were operating the device in off-duty or on-duty mode and not drive time. They were forcing the device out, operating with a device that was not compliant with the Canadian federal regulations.
Okay, but if they were operating in and not on duty, not in drive time, why couldn't they lay a charge? That's logbook falsification.
Well, they were able to do that, but it's the device they want to hit them with. It's the device they want to hit. So they can't they can lay an hours of service charge. Sorry, I didn't clarify that. But it's the ELD device that they really want to force out, because it's like, you're not using a legal device. We want to slap you, and unfortunately they can't put them out of service because they can't enforce that right now. So yeah.
My question is, what devices are legal?
Well, that's interesting. We have 55 on the list from Transport Canada. And of those 55, there are 20 vendors providing those 55 devices. So really, it's not a whole lot of vendors. 20? That's less than 24 vendors. And many of them have multiple devices, because some of them are used on your Android device or your Apple device. So they need to have multiples.
There, and I fixed it, Johnny.
Look at that. I'm here. But yeah, so we've got lots of vendors, and the big guys that we've always talked about. When were they going to show up on the list? Well, they're here. Yeah, they're here.
And to highlight what John just said, there are 55 devices approved, but not 55 manufacturers. And I'll
Right.
just Fleet Complete is a great example. They've got
Yep.
one, two, three, I think, four
Four.
different things approved.
Yep.
This is a list, and I'll put this in the show notes down below, this link to Transport
Hmm.
Canada,
Hmm.
because Ontario has been very clear, and I think
Yes.
most provinces are as well, saying that they are using the exact same list that
Yep.
Transport Canada has approved.
Yep. Yep.
So
Correct.
certainly Ontario is, and we are the largest trucking province. So
Right.
that's fine. Most of you will be covered by that. And
Yep.
as John said, look at there's 6 pages
Hmm.
of, and we'll just go to the last page here. Trimble's there, and you know, a lot
Sonar.
of different
Yep.
manufacturers are here. The
Yeah.
big boys
Yep.
are now
Yep.
here.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. So.
Now, the one thing that I was, while we're talking about this, that PMTC had said,
Hmm.
um, and just go to this very quickly. There,
Yes. This is important.
go ahead.
Well, you need to confirm model number and software version. You can't just go, "Oh, I'll get the Trimble device. That'll work good. I'll get their version of it and whatnot." No, no, no. You have to confirm the model number and the software version, because these guys have multiple model numbers, multiple software versions, because maybe they're in the US as well. Well, in the US, there isn't the third party certification as there is here in Canada. So you need to go by what device and what software version is approved by Canada. Now, I expect that list will probably grow with other models and versions, but right now we've got 55 that are approved and ready to go for January 1, 2023.
Yeah, and here we are, almost the middle of November. So
Yep.
if you are a carrier that has not selected your device yet,
Hmm.
I would get shaken,
Oh, well,
because
and good luck, because a lot of them, if you're looking to put a device in the truck, a lot of these suppliers don't have supply. Their focus has been existing clientele and making sure they're up to snuff. So if you're coming out of the woodwork and going, "Well, I guess I better get an Omnitrax device, or I better get an Isaac device," well, you may not have, you probably left it too late. You should have been talking to these guys a year ago and getting this set up.
unfortunately, this hit at a very bad time.
Yep.
In the US, they were, what do you call it, turning off the 3G network.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that made a lot of devices for the US not compatible anymore, because they
Right.
had to be able to operate on the 4G network as we
Correct.
moved to 5G.
Yep.
So a lot of the old devices had to be replaced. So the
Hmm.
Omnitrax were those types of customers, or suppliers that have had a lot of devices in the market
Yep.
already, had to
Yep.
go and replace a lot. So
Yes.
they've been working their tails off
Hmm.
doing that, taking care, as you said, existing customers.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, anyways, you better get
Yeah.
shaken. Your
Yeah.
only choice might be the devices that work on cell phones or
Yep.
tablets,
Yep.
because you may not be able to get the hardware,
Hmm.
the some of the nice devices that are built for trucks. That's the
Hmm.
disadvantage in
Hmm.
my mind of using a cell phone or a tablet. They
Right.
work great, but
Hmm.
with the constant pounding and everything, I'm not,
Vibrations.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm just not sure the longevity of those devices, and
Right.
but I have no experience, and I've
Right.
never had anybody tell me anything negative about that either. I just,
Right.
my own thought process.
Yep. Well, and then add on to that, driver training.
Yeah,
Every device works differently. So even if a driver's worked at another company using a different type of advice or device, and then comes to work for you guys and you got a different device, you got to train them all because they work slightly different. You need to make sure the driver's doing it. And on top of that, probably one of the biggest dilemmas that I see when going out to see clients is their hours of service training, electronic device training is not in depth enough.
yes.
We're still seeing lots of violations being issued because the drivers don't know or understand how to operate the device properly.
Yeah.
So this is
Yes.
causing a lot of grief with your carrier profiles.
Silly things like, did you know you have to be able to hand the device out the door?
Yep.
not being able to show an inspector the instructions for the device.
Yep.
Not
Yep.
there's what, three different sets of instructions, I think.
Yep.
One for the
Yep.
device, one
Yep.
for if the device malfunctions,
Yep.
and what's a third? There's a third one. I forget now.
How to
Um,
transmit data.
yeah, how to transmit
Yep.
data.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, if you
Yep.
can't, as a driver, if you can't show the
Yep.
officer those things, um, you can get a ticket. And
An interesting.
companies aren't
Go ahead.
teaching it,
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say, interesting enough, one client we were dealing with, they've got a number of violations with drivers because um, they were meeting up with law enforcement in the U.S., not so much here in Canada, but in the U.S. And the officer was asking them to relay the data via the method approved.
right?
Okay, and the drivers would freeze up and go, "I don't know how to do that."
And
You have a
that's
sheet, but I think part of it is the transport companies, the motor carriers, are not teaching the drivers how to transmit that data. It's like you should be demonstrating that in your courses with the drivers in the training. It's like, okay, here's how you do this.
yep.
I'm going to ask you to transmit it. Here's what I want you to do, and follow these steps. And when you do it, and then have the sheet to back it up, you're good. But one of the faults, as I say, was because they felt the drivers were freezing up because they were intimidated by law enforcement.
Well, and that's true. I mean, I worked with a carrier, and we because they are one of the new Canadian type companies,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
worked with a carrier, and we did our own ELD videos
Yep.
because I got one of their
Perfect.
employees who
Yep.
spoke the majority of the language, and this is Punjabi.
Perfect.
Um,
Perfect.
and him and I worked together and created a whole series of help videos for their ELD device
Excellent.
and
Excellent.
put it on. It's actually on their website under
Yep.
you can hide it a bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was in their native language,
Why not?
and it
Perfect.
was, it was great.
Yeah.
Anyways, but
It's the way
um,
to do it. That's the way to do it. Why not? You don't have to, use a generic training. Use something that works for your company and your drivers.
yeah, and with cell phones
So,
today, everybody's got a good camera. I mean, it doesn't
yep.
take much.
No.
For those of you that are watching, I'm using my cell phone as my
Hmm.
webcam, and
Yeah.
it's sitting there in a tripod. Like, it
Yep.
doesn't take much. Um,
Damn, you look good, Chris. You look good. That camera
well,
really makes you look good.
it's the face I was born with, but the
Yeah.
picture's good. You know, you don't need a fancy microphone like that. You
Yep.
can buy a lapel mic for like
Yep.
$50, and
Yeah.
so you've got a free cell phone or your
Yep.
cell phone and a fifty
Yep.
dollar mic. You can make great
Yep.
how-to videos.
Exactly.
And a little
Exactly.
bit of self promotion if you need help with
Yep.
that. Hey, I can come out
Sure.
and help you. Got
Yeah,
to charge, but
exactly. Yeah.
um,
Why not? But
hey,
that's a great idea. So help your drivers, help them better understand what they need to do, set them up for success.
yeah. That is that what we wanted to talk about. Oh, last thing about let's go back to this and we'll wrap up the ELD portion by me switching to this screen. Here we go. Oh, no, I
Hmm.
didn't want to. I want to bring you back on. Hey, there we go. I got to hit the
Hey,
right button.
hey.
Okay, the exception. So the ELD rule
Yep.
that takes place
Yep.
in January the 1st of 2023, where you
Yep.
will start getting tickets. There's a
Correct.
few exceptions.
Yep.
Let's not have Canada roll it all out together.
No,
And
no, no.
I got
That
to
would be
thank
too simple.
our buddy Mike Million from PMTC for putting this list together.
Cool.
Um, because I don't know where did you see it, but that's where I saw it was from Mike.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. He's been a huge advocate for this.
Yes. So
Yep.
British Columbia and Quebec, sometime in 2023, not
Yep.
January the 1st, but sometime in 23, they
Yep.
anticipate that one rolling out. Northwest
Yep.
Territories are going to roll it out by the end of January of 23. So not
Cool.
maybe it's February the 1st, who knows, but it's
Yep.
going to be early 23 for them. Alberta
Yep.
and Saskatchewan, what's happening out there, Johnny? Do you know?
At this point in time, they're not looking to put in any legislation or regulations with ELDs in their provinces. And I actually read an article, it was a while ago now, and I hope they're changing their mind. But the government in Saskatchewan said, we're quite happy with paper. And I know that Saskatchewan Trucking Association is dead set against that. They want to move forward. They want to get in with the times. So, but yeah, those two provinces are, yeah, they haven't made any decisions at all yet.
And PEI, this
Yep.
province, doesn't need
No.
legislation because
It's so small. The whole island fits in the 160 rule.
which when I first read that, I went, "What? That doesn't." And then I thought about it. I went, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it does make
Yeah.
sense. They're all
Yep.
160-kilometer exempt." So
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
it was kind of, in my mind, humorous. But
Yep.
hey,
Yep.
so all right, let's change to subject number 2. I think we beat the heck out of.
Oh,
Did
this is a good one.
I
Yes.
didn't swear, but we beat
No,
the
you did
heck
good.
out of
Yeah.
ELDs. Get ready for your ELDs.
Yeah.
If you need help
Get ready.
selecting an ELD provider, reach out to John or I. We can
Yep.
answer some questions. And of course, our contact info is in the show notes down
Yep.
below. But
And there's some good providers out there. There's,
oh, there's
and,
some,
and everybody on that list, refer to that list to find a provider if you haven't already.
yeah.
So,
Driver Inc. Since
oh,
we're sharing
geez,
the screen here, I thought
never ending.
we'd start off with this one. Yeah, Driver Inc. Never ending. But for you and I, you and I are both on the same page on this. We both
Yep.
disapprove. At least I shouldn't speak for you. I certainly
Nope.
disapprove
Yep.
of
Yep.
Driver Inc. I don't think
Agreed.
it's
Yep.
fair.
Yep.
I know you agree, but I shouldn't put words in your
Hmm.
mouth.
Oh no, you're not. Have no fear. No, no,
You
we're
know.
on the same page here. So,
So, uh,
yep.
how do you say? Is it Seamus? Seamus?
Seamus.
Seamus O'Regan Jr.
Yep.
Our federal transport minister came out and said, we're going after the trucking companies that don't give truckers their rightful benefits.
Yep.
And I want to, at this point, just remind truck drivers that as of, is it January? That if you are a federal regulated employee,
Hmm.
is it January that the 10 sick days take effect?
End of December, they say.
End of December. Okay. So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you are a
Yep.
federally regulated employee, and I stress that
Hmm.
part,
Yep. Employee.
you are eligible for 10 paid sick
Sick days.
days.
Yeah.
Well, a Driver
Exactly.
Inc. fella doesn't get that
Nope.
benefit.
Nope. Nope.
Um,
No.
but
Well, but there's some other benefits that a lot of these drivers don't seem to realize either. As an employee versus a subcontractor or a Driver Inc. driver, you're missing out on a ton of benefits. So, your Canada Pension Plan, CPP,
big one.
everybody's required to contribute to that program, for future opportunities that, when I retire, I'm going to collect a benefit of sorts. Well, your employer is required by law to equal that CPP benefit that comes off your pay. Well,
Yeah.
if you're doing the Driver Inc. model, guess what? Your employer is not your employer, and they're not contributing. So you're getting stuck paying that all on your own.
Well, if they're
Employment.
paying
Sorry.
it, John.
Well, if they're paying, yeah. So, Revenue Canada is going to get their bite out of it at the end of when it comes tax time anyway. But how much are you paying? You're probably not paying your fair share, so it's not going to do you any good when you decide to retire. So,
John, it's my belief that there are many Driver Inc. drivers out there
mhm.
who do not follow the law.
Oh, I agree 100%. I agree
There's
100%. Yeah.
submissions to CRA, if they are
Yep.
there,
Yep.
are not what they should be. Anyways,
Yeah. Yeah.
for a number of different reasons, I don't agree with the Driver Inc. model.
Yeah. Yeah.
The drivers don't have the protection
No,
from
not at
employer.
all.
I mean,
Not
I
at
know
all.
one Driver Inc. company that if you have a crash,
Hmm.
the $5,000 deductible is yours.
Yes, and that's illegal.
Well, it's not illegal if you're Driver Inc.
Well,
because
as an
it's
employee.
business to
Yeah.
business. But
Right.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there are so
But
many reasons I'm against Driver Inc.
Well, and Driver Inc. doesn't make the kind of revenue to be able to pay for a $5,000 deductible or more, and
No.
that's not fair. It's as an employee, you have those protections to say, no, you cannot touch my paycheck. You cannot deduct things
Yeah.
from my paycheck. And interesting enough, a lot of drivers don't realize this. Usually after maybe a crash or a violation or something like that, they may get terminated as a Driver
Oh,
Inc. driver. They just very easily poof, it's a curb. Well, under federal law, you cannot be terminated without just cause as an employee. So there's a protection there. You have rights to go back against that employer if you've been wrongfully terminated.
Yep.
Um,
Uh,
if what happens if you're out of work? Like what if you get stuck and you go, okay, well, I just got laid off from my job because the company, got rid of 10
uh,
trucks and I was one of those guys and I can't find another job for a couple of months.
as we head into a recession,
Yes, sir. And that's what's going to happen. So, now all of a sudden you've got no job, you got no income.
and you got
But
no EI, uh,
exactly. So
you've
if
got
you're paying for your employment insurance and your employer was paying their share as well, you would be able to go, "Hey, I'm out of a job. I can't find a job. There's no work right now. Let's take and collect some unemployment."
yeah, yeah. Oh, and John, you froze there, but as soon as you come back, I will welcome you back. Hopefully, it's not a permanent thing. I just wanted
Come
to hit on
back.
this that our friend Mike McCarran doesn't believe the fine if you are caught by the federal government that they are supposed to be enforcing now is two
Is
hundred
it
and
me?
fifty
Is it
thousand
you?
dollars.
Hey,
And
there we go.
hey, you're back. So the
Sorry, lost
fine
you.
is $250,000. Mike
Yep.
McCarran, for one, says that's not enough
Yeah.
because some of
Yeah.
these bigger companies that are heavily into the Driver Inc model, and I'm thinking of one that is rumored to have 3,000 drivers that are in the Driver Inc model.
Hmm.
$250,000 is not a deterrent
No.
if they were to get that fine every year.
Oh yeah. No, it'd be easier to pay the fine than it would be what they should be paying.
Yeah, so I just wanted to
Yeah.
highlight that at least one person says that's not enough.
Yeah.
Perhaps it should be a scaled fine,
Hmm.
based on revenue or size of the trucking company, because a
Yep.
$250,000 fine to a 25 truck account
Yeah.
would be devastating,
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
and put them out of business.
Yep.
But to some of the larger fleets that we have here in Canada,
Hmm.
it would just be a cost of doing business, I think, is not to put
Agreed.
words into Mike's mouth, but I think that's what
No.
Mike means.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Agreed.
So, Driver Inc., they are supposed to be cracking down in 23.
Hmm. Hmm.
How long ago did we have an episode that we talked 100% about Driver Inc., and we said the same thing? And it's got to be about a year ago, I got to think.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree. Yeah. I think it was about that time. So
And nothing's happened in the past year to make me think
no, there,
anything's
there, there
changed.
there's been a couple of investigations or audits, I guess you could say, but nothing big. They talked about naming names and talking about the fines that were being laid, and I haven't seen anything publicly announced or anything along that line. So,
No, I'm not. I mean, I've heard rumors that some companies have been audited,
yep,
um, but I haven't heard of any fines. I haven't heard of a company being audited by CRA. What I have heard is WSIB going in.
WSIB, yes,
So
yes,
that's only in
yep,
Ontario.
yep,
And many of the Driver Inc. companies do comply with WSIB laws.
right,
So,
right.
which again is why you Driver Inc. then. But,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and for the drivers out there, by the way, your company is supposed to, if you are Driver Inc., supposed to issue a T4A slip.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
but many companies don't do that either.
No.
And
No.
from what I understand, I'm far from a tax guy, but
Yep.
somebody told me that a T4A slip takes away many of the possible deductions of being self employed because
Yep.
you are truly not self employed. You are a personal service business or something it's
Yep.
called.
PSB. Yep. Personal
Okay.
service business. PSB. Yeah. Well,
And
you
so,
can even use T4As for owner operators as well.
oh, can you?
So yes, because the bonus part is with a T4A, it gives you the amount of money that you generated or revenued and were paid during that term. Whereas, like with an owner operator, you have a statement that you pay them. They don't issue an invoice or anything along that line. So it makes it a lot easier to be able to just issue a T4A to say, hey, your annual revenue that you were paid was X. Here's your gross. No deductions or anything like that, just shows the gross. And then that way, that gets filed with CRA from the employer's side. And then if you're an owner operator, you would be able to provide proof of your deductions and benefits that you would be able to coop from there. And then the same thing with a Driver Inc. driver, but they would know, oh, hang on, you're not really a true owner operator because you're not deducting any truck fuel, insurance, anything like that. So, oh, you're just a driver, and no, you go into a different class.
Yeah, it's crazy. There was one, you just reminded me when you said no invoices. There was one company I used to work for many years ago that had a lot of
Mhm.
owner operators, and the first week of January, they printed out 26 invoices for
Oh
each
wow,
owner operator, all dated for the 1st and the
yep,
15th of each month. And
wow,
that's the owner operators had to complete that invoice and turn it in order to get paid.
oh wow,
Yeah,
jeez,
but they had like 20 or something, but um, every that's how they got paid. They had to
yep,
complete the invoice. So they were trying to demonstrate and remind the owner operators, of course, that it is a business to business
yeah, yes,
relationship,
yes,
and
it is,
you
it is,
invoice.
yep,
Most companies don't do that, I know.
right,
But
correct,
is
correct, yep. So.
anything else about Driver Inc?
You know what? I guess the thing is, if you're a Driver Inc. I've been in this industry 40 years, so I know Driver Inc. from back in my trucking days as well, and I see it today. And all I can tell you is, if you're a Driver Inc. driver, you are missing out on way more benefits than you ever could. You know, overtime is another one we didn't really touch on,
Oh,
which should be in there, but nonetheless, there you really need to do your research and understand that you're being screwed over by your employer. And especially if your employer is telling you you have to be Driver Inc., you're working for the wrong employer. If you're a driver who says, no, I want to be Driver Inc., then you obviously don't know the benefits of being an employed driver.
yeah, it's. I mean, we know it's a touchy subject.
Yep.
Many of our listeners perhaps will be saying and yelling at us, saying we don't know what we're talking about. Um, Leave us a comment,
Yeah,
please.
exactly. Feel free to rant. Yep. So,
Tell us we don't
yeah,
know what the hell we're talking
yep.
about, because um, you have a valid opinion, of
Yep.
course, uh,
Hmm.
and you are entitled to your opinion, and this is Canada. You are entitled, thankfully, for you can
Yep.
do what the heck you want.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
I display my poppy, it's Remembrance Day, and a lot of people
Yep.
sacrificed so that
Yes.
you can
Yep.
leave us a comment and tell us
Exactly.
exactly what is on your mind. So, for the
Agreed.
sacrifices of others, I thank them. I think
Hmm.
it's a hell of a country we live in, a hell of a good country that we live
Damn
in.
straight.
All right, Johnny, anything else for
Go.
this week as we
No,
wrap this up?
I think we beat that horse to death again. So yeah, so it's an ongoing topic, and I'd like to see it go away and be better managed. So we need
Well,
everybody's support. Make that happen.
I just got to say that last comment about beating a horse to death, no animals were harmed in the making of this episode.
Not today, anyway.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's John Farquhar of Summit Risk Solutions and myself, Chris Harris of Safety Dog. Tune in next week where we will have another episode coming out for you. And we appreciate you tuning into the Trucking, Risk, and Insurance podcast. See y'all next week.
Take care, y'all.
There, we'll hit finish on that one. You're awful blurry.
Oh, I know. I don't.